Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman, and this morning in Denver, and I guess it's noontime here on the East Coast, we have Kellie Nelson Fetter with Sherman Howard. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Are you still drinking coffee? Is it?
I am done with my coffee for the day. I can only let myself have 2 cups, or it tips into being helpful and motivating to like producing anxiety. So I have moved on, but I did have my 2 cups today.
Okay, so that's my standard first question about how do you get started in the morning to go with Latte with a Lawyer, but you just answered it. Okay, so 2 is the right number. Okay, good.
2 is, although I will say, like, what I do with my coffee is probably more important than the coffee. So like the first cup is half an hour before everyone else in the house is up. You know, it's about having that quiet time, a little journaling, meditation, filling my metaphorical cup.
Okay.
So before, I think is just as important as what's actually in the cup. Is what I do with it.
I totally agree. So you work at home? Are you working remotely?
Some days. About 1 day a week now I'm working from home, but the rest of the time I'm back in the office on the 23rd floor with the side of the mountains in Denver. So
oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Where in Denver are you?
Downtown. We've been in new office spaces for about the last year, so we're in a brand new building downtown, and it's good to be down here.
Oh, good. Where are you from? Denver? So where are you from?
I grew up in Wyoming.
Okay.
So not geographically far from Denver, but a pretty different world. Wyoming is a small town with really long streets.
Yep.
But I enjoy getting to practice kind of in a bigger city with a little bit more vibrant business community. But I'm still licensed in Wyoming. I still practice in Wyoming some, and I really like getting to do that too.
Oh, good. Excellent. So let's talk about your law practice. Tell us what you do.
I do commercial litigation. So really I try to focus on businesses that are based in Denver and Colorado and Wyoming, and any disputes they have with other businesses or individuals, which has been incredible for me in terms of the literal depth and breadth of what that means. I've got to work on things from below the earth's surface with fracking and pipelines to I have some cases involving commercial space launches, so all the way into Earth orbit. So Denver's a pretty cool business community. There's a lot going on here, and so it's fun to get to serve businesses.
Oh, good. So give me an example of a case that you've litigated.
So there's one that I'm working on now. It's been going on for the last 5 years. Is a case involving a commercial space launch.
Okay.
That unfortunately went awry. It was unmanned, so no one got hurt. Rocket launch that was going to resupply the International Space Station that exploded 13 seconds off of liftoff. And we've been involved for the last 5 years in a dispute between one of the companies involved in that launch and their insurance carriers, which is a conglomeration of many, many different insurance carriers over what's covered. And when something like a rocket ship explodes, there's a lot of damage, but there's also a complicated interrelationship between insurance policies and contracts and the Commercial Space Launch Act and how statute interacts with that. So that's one. I like to get to say I'm a space lawyer, have an exploding rocket ship case, but I've really enjoyed it because it's involved a lot of different complicated areas of law and people and facts. And so that's an exciting one I'm working on now.
And so you're trying to recover damages, money.
We're trying to recover. So our client settled, and then asked their insurance company to reimburse them for that settlement. And their insurance company said that exploding rocket ships aren't covered in a commercial space launch policy. And so that's what we're fighting over.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you've been fighting that for 5 years.
Yes. And in that one, we're actually fighting in the Eastern District of California, which shout out to them. They are one of the most overburdened group of judges. They need some more judges there. So it's been a slow process, but they've worked really hard in what they describe as a very hard fought dispute. So,
okay. And what's the order of magnitude, money? Must be
Tens of
substantial.
millions at
Substantial.
issue.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah. And I will say the other side sees that differently, as is often the case.
Right. Interesting. So, I mean, how does that get, I mean, is that like you have an administrator, like how does it get litigated? Do you go before a judge before?
Well, ultimately, if we ever get there, this will be tried before a jury.
Oh, it would be a jury trial. Okay.
It would be a jury trial.
Okay.
But we have been engaged in many, many years of motions practice over every bit of discovery along the way. And there's summary judgment motions, so it's possible a judge will decide it on summary judgment. But we're still in the process of wading through all of that to see if our client gets their day in front of a jury.
Wow. Have you gone before a jury trial before? So I'm losing my.
Yes.
You have. So how often do you get to do that?
Not as often, and it really depends because a lot of the disputes I deal with are better resolved through settlement.
Okay.
And as much as I will tell you, my absolute favorite thing to do is a jury trial.
Okay.
But I never get to do what's in my interest. It has to be what's in the client's best interest, and there's always that competing balance. So yes, I have tried cases to juries. I've done arbitrations to arbitrators. I've tried things to judges. And I will say jury trials are my favorite.
Your favorite.
But ultimately serving my client is
serving your client, sure. But you're on the plaintiff side when you're typically or both sides?
It really depends. In business litigation, often there's less of a distinction between the plaintiff's bar and defense bar, because both company, if we get to the point where someone's filing a lawsuit, usually both companies have some stake in it. So even if we are the defendant, we're often filing counterclaims. So we're serving in kind of a plaintiff's role. Often if we're the plaintiff, the defendant files counterclaims. So we're doing a little bit of both. The one part of my practice where I tend to serve, I do a lot of insurance recovery work, where in that area of my practice, I only represent policyholders, not insurance carriers.
Okay.
But I could still be on the plaintiff or defense side.
I see. What do you like best? If you like jury trials, I would think you'd be interested in being on the plaintiff side.
I will say, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Not necessarily, because often, like I said, my cases involve, there are good facts and bad facts and potential legal claims going both ways. If I'm in front of a jury, I like to be on the case that has the best facts. If I'm in front of a judge, I like to be on the side that has the best law. And regardless who I am, I like to be able to tell my clients stories, and use the tools that exist in the justice system to find the right outcome, and sometimes that's through a mediator, and really working to find what the parties care most about and coming up to a mediated solution. And sometimes that's through a trial and a jury, telling them, what's the most just solution in this situation.
Okay. And how do you make the decision to make that decision to go to trial? Like, how do you get there?
Really through listening, which I think is a very underappreciated legal skill.
Okay.
It's really listening to what our clients' true goals and objectives are, and why we're here. Because when we understand what the ultimate goal is, that's what helps me decide which tactics and strategies will best get us to that goal.
Okay. What is it about the jury trial that you like, that you get so excited about?
Well, one of the reasons I love practicing law is that it takes so many different parts of my brain and personality, and so many different skills. And there's nowhere in my practice that condenses all of that in one time like a trial does. So I need to be a good storyteller. I am a huge reader. I love fiction. I think the best way I connect with people, and it's really interesting you're doing podcasts, is hearing their stories.
Yeah.
It's really hard to judge people up close. And so I get an opportunity to tell my client's story through opening, closing, through how they present their testimony. I get to be really creative in demonstratives and visuals, and how do we present this mountain of data and information to regular people so they can understand. I have to rely on my memory. When I get to trial, we've been working on these cases for years, and we've gone through thousands of documents, and I have to be able to recall which fact and which law fits in this situation really promptly. So I think it's the area where all these different facets of my work and my skills and my clients' work all come together in a condensed time period. And I think it's, I'm still a little bit idealistic in that I believe that for all the flaws in our system, when we get a group of people together to look at the facts in the law, that they usually find justice in the end. I hope that serves my client, but I know that the process and being able to have access to that process helps us achieve better results.
Yeah, got it. Excellent. So how'd you get started? I mean, why'd you become a lawyer, and tell us about that journey to get here?
Well, as a kid, I couldn't pick what I wanted to do. I was one of those people, I really wanted to be an astronaut for a long time. And then I realized I'd have to do PE forever. And I don't like to run. So that was off the table, and I thought, maybe I wanted to be a rancher and a cowgirl. I grew up in Wyoming. I wanted to be close to the land. I thought maybe I wanted to be a writer. One of the coolest things is that, I've got to work on space cases. I had a case where I was dealing with fence outlaws and cattle ranching. Today I get to be a part of all those different industries and interests, and my curiosity is always always has something new to learn and process, and I get to bring all these different kind of skills into my daily life. And so I really think it was that, and like I mentioned before, that idealism that lawyers are problem solvers. And I believe still, and there are many issues with it, but I still believe in our system of justice, and that it's an area where I can take, the skills and talent I have to try to solve some problems for others. And that, it seemed to fit with I'm interested in everything, and I want to make the world a better place. And where do those two things match up? And law is where I ended up.
Excellent. Anyone else in your family lawyers, or was there any other influence that no?
No, my dad was a police officer.
Okay.
He would have preferred I do something useful, like become a plumber. So no, there was none of that. And I have found, and because one of the things I'm doing now, is I'm the chair of my firm's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about there, and in that work, is that I don't want only people who already have, a family history of lawyers who have had this path laid out for them to be successful in the law. There is really a place here for people with all different backgrounds, people who have struggled and come up through different paths. And so my parents had no idea why I wanted to be a lawyer. And I kind of had to figure out how to get here without that guidance. And I, to the extent we can, provide more education and options and let more people know that this is a path that anyone can be successful in. If you have a skill, there is a way that you can find to use it in the practice of law. It's such a diverse, broad field, that there's room for lots of people here and lots of skills here. And, so I think, I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
I can't even remember what I asked you actually, but but I mean, how's that play out? Your role with diversity inclusion, how is that playing out? Like, how are you making that happen at the firm? What do you do?
Well, it's a good question, because it's certainly not me making anything happen. Okay. One, we've, as a firm, and I think as a legal community, because we're not the only firm dealing with this, we're not the only city that's looking around and saying there's the diversity within our lawyers, within our equity members, within our leadership doesn't look like the clients we're serving, and what can we do to fix that?
Sure.
At Sherman and Howard, we came up with a strategic plan that touches everything from how we're recruiting, to how we're engaging in our communities, to what we're doing internally to learn more about, our biases, and what processes and procedures we're putting in place to reduce those. One of the things we've done, and there's a whole bunch we can talk about, but one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I think is going successfully, is we changed a portion of how our summer associate program is working, so that we are having all of our summer associates compete or work on a couple projects that are evaluated blindly, and that are consistent, to take that, well, I like this person and they would be comfortable to get a beer with, to remove some of that bias from how we are hiring at our very, early initial entry lawyer levels, to make that a more objective process. Another thing I'm really proud of that the whole Denver legal community is doing, is 5 of the biggest law firms are intentionally working together to recruit in more racially diverse locations, where there are more racially diverse law students graduating, in the hopes that if we work together to bring in more diverse lawyers who have a network and a system, because they're coming together, that we're more likely going to make racially diverse lawyers successful in our really, really white legal market. So those are a couple of the things we're working on, but it's those are just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. No, okay. No, interesting. But why the interest there? I mean, how were you hired, for example? Like, but you weren't part of that movement, right? So you got,
No, I came in as a summer associate.
okay.
So I've been with the firm my entire legal career.
All right.
And I will say, one of my fears, is in this role is that, I'm not diverse enough. And I will say, like, I'm a member of the LGBT community. I'm bisexual, but I'm also in a relationship with a man. So I have these fears that, like, I'm not gay enough to be a good diverse representative. I'm white. I'm a white cis female. I don't have racial diversity. So how can I be in this role? But I really think that, the answer is no one person can ever be diverse enough to be a representative of everybody's experiences.
Well, not everybody, but the fact that you're introducing that is a good thing. You're right, because I mean, you have to represent the population, and it's not a narrow, sampling that most places are.
Right. And so we're working on growth there. And I really hope soon that there are so many diverse female, queer, equity members in law firms that we're not having this discussion anymore.
Right.
But for today, it's a discussion I think is important. So we're having it in our firm, we're having it in our legal communities, we're having it in our business communities. And really a lot of that, again, comes back to listening.
And would you say Denver as a whole is pretty open-minded about diversity?
Yes. I mean, I think we're really open-minded. But I think we have a lot of room for growth.
Yeah. I mean, just given the backdrop of what's happening in the country right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are areas where where Colorado and Denver is a leader. One example is Colorado passed some laws requiring employers to tell how much they're paying, which is really designed to reduce pay inequality. And I know, so that's one example of where I think Colorado's a leader.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So skill set to do what you're doing. What's the skill set? What do you need to be good at to be a good commercial litigator?
And this is where I think, kind of what we were talking about earlier, and diversity comes in, is there is no one skill set that makes a good commercial litigator.
Okay.
I think that we sometimes have an idea in our head about trial lawyers that look something like Law and Order, or that you have to be a really great public speaker, that you have to be super confident, and I don't think that's true. If you are really, really detail oriented, there's a place in commercial litigation for you to be digging into documents and finding that smoking gun and making a huge difference.
Yeah.
If you are really good with people, one of my favorite things to do as a lawyer is counsel my clients through how to testify, either at a deposition or at trial, which takes a lot of people skills. So if you have really good people skills, there's a place for you in commercial litigation. I get to work with expert witnesses on incredibly detailed, rocket science and accounting. And so if you've got a background there and knowledge there's a place for you in commercial litigation. I would say one of the best things is I get to work on teams, and bringing different people with different backgrounds and skill sets leads to better problem solving for our clients. So there's no one skill set other than being ethical. I think as long as we are really ethically representing our clients, every different kind of intelligence can help solve problems, which is ultimately what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, you're suggesting a team approach, but I mean, if you're a smaller firm and you don't have a big team and you're a commercial litigator, I mean, there's got to be something you got to have some core skill set, I would imagine, right? To be proficient.
Yes, but I think every commercial litigator is bringing their own unique skill set. Some are absolutely charismatic and great with people, and that plays great in front of juries. So some are super analytical, and that also brings a strength. So I would say there's no one skill set. There's a lot of skill sets.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think you're the first person that's answered it that way. Usually someone says you have to be super disciplined. You got to be detail oriented. You've got to be, work tirelessly. There's always something, people always say something. So you're saying there's a blend of things to be successful.
I was saying if you are good at something, if you are really, really good at something, there is a way that you can turn that skill into success as a lawyer. And maybe it's not as a commercial litigator.
Okay.
But I think the law is such a big, broad area that whatever your skills are, you can find a way to leverage those skills.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like if you're a people person or you're more analytical, does that lead you to a different flavor of the law, right? In other words, if you're a plaintiff attorney doing, civil litigation, you probably have to be, maybe more persuasive, right? Than if you're doing transactional kind of a law. I don't know.
And that's like, I think, the kind like persuasion when I'm trying to negotiate settlement agreements and work out a compromise in that more transactional piece of my practice, I got to be really persuasive there too. It's just in a different way.
Okay. Fair enough. So what would your advice be? So if someone trying to find the right place for them as a lawyer, what would your advice be as they're embarking on a career?
One of the best pieces of advice I got as a young lawyer, especially someone coming into a big law firm, was that to give it a couple years, because law students are really, really good at being good at something. Like as law students, we're smart, probably we're the top of their class, are used to excelling. And the first couple years of practice are such a steep learning curve that you're not good at it. And none of us like being not good at things. As a whole, lawyers do not like not being good. And so the best advice I got was to wait until you get over that really intense learning period to decide whether you like what you're doing or not. Because once I got over the dislike of not being good at things, I learned that I really, really liked trial work. I really liked the people I was working with. I really liked the firm. And had I made a decision based on that lack of experience, I wouldn't have known those things. And I'll say it now, I'm kind of in that role again, in a leadership role. It's stretching me and growing me in new ways, but I'm learning that the discomfort of not being an expert at this yet is different from it not being a good fit.
I totally agree with you and get that. Yeah, you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? You gotta, no pain, no gain. I mean, there's a million ways to express it, but yeah, you have to work through that discomfort to grow. That's very true. Yep. Good. That's good. I agree with you. And anything, frankly, if you want to grow, you gotta get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. And know that doesn't last forever too. The discomfort of being new doesn't last forever. It keeps coming up now.
Yeah. So I would say that's a core skill, right? You gotta have that. You gotta have that trait, I would think, to be a good lawyer too, because you're always learning new things, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. Curiosity, a willingness to learn. the humility to hear people out, and consider that your approach might not be the best approach. I think those are skills that not only serve lawyers, but serve everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Technology in the firm, how much do you guys leverage that, and how important is that?
Hugely important. So I wear a lot of hats. One of them has been in really championing our firm's selection of an e-discovery vendor, and an e-discovery platform. And one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is digging through people's data to find the most important facts, to tell a story.
Sure.
I really believe in a litigation practice that e-discovery, being able to review and identify documents for production for the best facts is really just as much a core competency as legal research, as legal writing. And so that's an area where I've spent a lot of my time in practice, and the amount of data that is coming from business clients has exploded. Over my practice. It's not just emails, it's Slack messages and chat messages and emojis and social media.
Right. So what do you use? What do you use to pull it all together? I'm curious.
We're using Relativity, and
Okay.
BDO is our outside partner who we've been working with a lot over the last 9 months. And I will say the difference between the databases of 30 and 50,000 documents that I started with, and our $1 million documents where we are using technology to weed out the stuff we never need to look at. To get to the most important documents fastest, absolutely makes it.
How many of those have you evaluated? Like how many? There's a lot of those platforms, right?
And I've probably done a demo of 9 or 10.
Okay. But there's a lot more than there's a lot more than 9 or 10, right?
Yes. And I've worked on cases with at least half a dozen. And there are numerous good products out there.
Yeah. Is there a big difference between the good and the bad? Or the top ones? I mean,
I would say of the top ones,
yeah,
if they're including computer assisted learning, if they've got email threading, like if they're using the up-to-date functions, there's strengths and weaknesses, but they're all good as long as you're doing those things.
Right.
There are some older systems, like if you aren't using any kind of technology assisted review to cull out documents, and you're dealing with more than a few thousand pages, you're wasting your clients' money on lawyers spending time looking at things that technology can help us weed out. So I think there will always be room for lawyers, and we're going to need lawyers and our legal skills to do that. But machines are more effective at doing some of that initial sorting than a whole team of associates.
I would think so. Yeah, for sure. Okay, interesting. Okay, good. So you're a fan of that. Good. Yeah, no, I mean, AI and machine learning, and it's going to be in every industry, right? And you're going to use it as a decision support tool. It's not going to replace human beings. It's going to support, it's like outsourcing, right? You're just using a lever. So you have higher level thinking.
Yes.
Right?
It's just more sophisticated filtering.
Yeah.
And there are lots of things we can do to make sure that there's a meld between human intelligence and computer intelligence and getting to that. But I personally don't want to spend hundreds of hours going irrelevant. Right. Who sent that? Irrelevant anymore. Like I did enough of that early on that that being like, oh no, everything to and from this one is irrelevant. We can identify those all, code them, and never look at them again is a much more fun way to dig for the good facts.
Good. Excellent.
Or the
Okay,
bad
good.
facts.
Good. All right. Excellent. So just, final thoughts about, your firm and you and the best way to connect that you want to leave with the audience.
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I would say it's it's a profound privilege to get to practice law. I love the work that I get to do on a daily basis, whether I'm helping my business client or I'm helping a new associate navigate law. We really do have a privilege as lawyers to get to help solve problems, and in a way that I think few other people do. So it's really cool to get to be a lawyer.
Good. And wait, how big is your firm? How many lawyers in the firm?
I think right now we're at about 130,
Okay.
split around Colorado and Arizona, but looking to grow. And we've been in Denver a long time, 130 years, but I think we've got both that solid, a big solid bench of a lot of experience and really an eye towards the future and growing into the kind of law firm where people really want to practice.
Okay. And just practice in the state of Colorado?
I focus on,
I mean, the firm.
No.
Oh,
I would say,
okay.
like, I personally have had cases that ranged from Hungary to Kurdistan to China, and I've done all of that being based in Colorado. So
Okay.
we serve clients everywhere, but our headquarters is in Denver. We've got big branches in Colorado Springs and Phoenix, but there's it's a global world.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Colorado businesses that only affect Colorado. So as we serve them, we get to do cool stuff everywhere, which is fun.
Good deal. Excellent. Good. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the time today. It's been really interesting for everybody. Again, Kellie Nelson Fetter with Sherman Howard. And this is sponsored by EmotionTrac, which is a legal tech platform that helps litigators prepare for mediation and trials with our Insights platform. Thank you, Kellie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You bet.